The pain radiating from Emma Williams' broken arm was nothing compared to the terror squeezing her lungs as she crouched in the bathroom corner, her phone gripped in her trembling left hand. Her vision swam with tears and the swelling already closing her right eye. Through the flimsy door, she could hear Derek's footsteps in the bedroom, each one a countdown to something worse. "Emma," he called, voice dripping false sweetness. "Baby, open the door."
"I'm sorry."
"You know I lose my temper sometimes." She'd fallen for those words before. Not tonight. Not with her arm bent wrong and her ribs screaming with each breath. She needed help. She needed her mother. With shaking fingers, she pulled up her mom's contact and typed one-handed, each letter a battle through pain and fear. "Mom, please help. He broke my arm.
I'm scared."
Can't leave." She hit send and waited, pressing herself smaller against a cold tile. The door handle rattled. "Emma, don't test me. Open up so we can talk like adults." Her phone buzzed. Relief crashed through her until she read the words. "Unknown number. Who is this?" Emma's heart stopped.
"No."
"Please, no." She checked the message thread and felt ice flood her veins. The number wasn't in her contacts. In her panic, through her blurred vision, she'd mistyped completely. Before she could process the disaster, another message appeared. "Where are you? Answer me.
Now."
The voice beyond the door shifted. Derek's false gentleness evaporated. "I'm done playing games, Emma. Open this door, or I'll break it down." Her thumb flew across the screen. "Locked in bathroom. 2247 Riverside Apartments, Unit 15. Please don't call police. He has connections. He'll kill me." It was true. Derek worked security for some powerful people. He'd made sure she knew what would happen if she ever tried to run. Another message. "Do not open that door. I'm coming." Emma stared at the words. Who had she just texted? What had she done? But it didn't matter anymore. She was going to die in this bathroom at the hands of a man who'd promised to protect her. The door exploded inward, the cheap lock surrendering to Derek's shoulder. He filled the doorway, face twisted with rage, and something else. Something that looked like fear. "Who did you text?" he demanded, advancing on her. "Who the hell did you text, Emma?" She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. He grabbed her broken arm and she screamed, a raw animal sound that tore from her throat. "I asked you a question." "Wrong number," she sobbed. "I swear, wrong number." "Please, Derek, please." He released her and she collapsed, while rising from the pain. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair, and she realized with shock that he looked terrified. "You stupid bitch. You have no idea what you've done. If anyone comes here, if the wrong people find out, I can't even control." He didn't finish. Just kicked the sink cabinet hard enough to crack the wood. Through the ringing in her ears, Emma heard something else. A vehicle outside. No, multiple vehicles. Doors slamming. Footsteps, heavy and fast, on the stairs. Derek heard it too. His head snapped toward the apartment door. "Who did you call?" His voice shook now. "I told you, wrong number, I don't." The front door didn't just open. It was torn from its hinges with a single, devastating impact that shook the walls. Emma heard Derek make a sound she'd never heard from him before, a whimper of pure animal fear. Footsteps entered the apartment. Not running. Walking with the steady confidence of an apex predator. "Where is she?" The voice was deep, rough, and carried an accent Emma couldn't place. Slavic, maybe, but older, like something from another time entirely. Each word was controlled, measured, like the speaker was restraining something massive and violent beneath the surface. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but this is my apartment and you need to." The sound of Derek being cut off was brutal and final. Emma heard him hit the wall, heard the breath driven from his lungs, heard something crack. "I will ask once more." The voice was quieter now, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Where is she?" "Bathroom," Derek wheezed. Emma tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't obey. She managed to pull herself up using the sink just as a figure filled the bathroom doorway. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that blocked out the hallway light. Long dark hair fell past his shoulders, partially obscuring a face of sharp angles and brutal beauty. But it was his eyes that stopped Emma's breath. They glowed with a faint crimson light, like embers buried in ash, and when they fixed on her, she felt the weight of something ancient and utterly inhuman. He wore dark clothing that looked expensive despite the violence that had just occurred. Not a hair out of place. Not even breathing hard. Those burning eyes swept over her, cataloging every injury with predatory precision. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly when he saw her arm in its unnatural angle. "You sent the message." It wasn't a question. Emma nodded, her voice lost somewhere in her chest. He turned his head slightly, never breaking eye contact with her.
Luka.
"Get her out. Take her to Dr. Volkov. Full examination. Document everything." A second man appeared, younger, with blonde hair and the same otherworldly intensity in his eyes. He moved toward Emma carefully, hands visible, like approaching a wounded animal. "Miss, I'm going to help you walk. May I?" She managed a nod, and his hand closed gently around her good arm, supporting her weight as she stumbled forward. As they passed through the doorway, Emma saw Derek pressed against the wall, held there by the dark-haired man's hand around his throat. Derek's feet dangled inches off the ground, his face purple. "Please," Derek gasped. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who she was. She is no one to you." The words were soft, final. "She was never anything to you. And if I ever catch your scent near her again, I will show you what real pain feels like. Do you understand?" Emma wanted to watch, wanted to see Derek get what he deserved. But Luka was guiding her out with surprising gentleness, and she caught a glimpse of 2 more men in dark clothing standing guard in the hallway before he led her down the stairs. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted mirror black. Luka opened the back door and helped her inside where leather seats and warm air wrapped around her like a blanket. He slid in beside her, and the vehicle pulled away smoothly, silently. "Who was that?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you people?" Luka's expression softened slightly, though those strange eyes never lost their intensity. "That was JAREK KAEL, and you just sent the luckiest wrong text in history." The name meant nothing to Emma, but the way Luka said it, with reverence and something like wariness, told her everything she needed to know. She'd texted someone powerful, someone dangerous, someone who'd just saved her life, someone whose eyes glowed red in the darkness. The rest of the drive passed in a blur of pain and shock. Luka made a phone call in a language that sounded like growls shaped into words, his tone respectful, almost submissive. Emma caught the name, JAREK, several times, followed by responses she couldn't understand. She looked down at her phone, still clutched in her hand, at the message thread that had changed everything. "I'm coming." He'd kept his promise. But who, or what, had she just summoned into her life? And why did those glowing red eyes make her feel safe instead of terrified? The SUV drove for what felt like hours, though Emma couldn't be sure. Pain and shock had turned time into something fluid and unreliable. They left the city lights behind, climbing into hills she didn't recognize, following roads that became narrower and more isolated with each passing mile. When they finally stopped, Emma looked up through her haze to see iron gates opening onto a private drive lined with ancient trees. The estate beyond was massive, a sprawling stone structure that looked like it had been lifted from some European countryside and dropped into the wilderness. Warm light spilled from tall windows, but the darkness surrounding it felt alive, watchful. Luca helped her out and up the wide stone steps where an older man waited, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with a doctor's bag in hand. "Inside, quickly," he said with the same accent as JAREK. "Bring her to the East Wing." Emma was guided through halls of dark wood and stone, past walls decorated with tapestries that looked centuries old. She caught glimpses of other people, men and women who stopped and stared as she passed, their eyes reflecting light in ways that made her skin prickle. The medical room was warm and clinical. Dr. Volkov worked with efficient gentleness, examining her arm, her ribs, the bruises blooming across her skin. He asked questions in a soft voice, documenting everything with a thoroughness of someone who'd done this before. When he finally set and casted her arm properly, the relief was almost overwhelming. "You're safe here," he told her, and something in his tone made her believe him. She was given pain medication and led to a bedroom that was larger than her entire apartment. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. Someone had laid out clean clothes. Emma wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, but exhaustion pulled at her like a riptide. She just pulled on the soft shirt they'd left when the door opened. JAREK KAEL filled the doorway, and in the firelight, Emma could see him clearly for the first time. Those red glowing eyes had dimmed to an amber that was almost human, but there was still something wild in them, something that made her instincts scream both danger and safety simultaneously. "You should rest," he said, his voice rough but not unkind. "But first, you deserve the truth." Emma's heart hammered. "Who are you?" He stepped into the room, and the firelight caught on scars she hadn't noticed before, claw marks that raked across his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. "I am JAREK KAEL, Alpha King of the Northern Territories." He paused, watching her with unsettling intensity. "And I am not entirely human, Emma William." The room felt too small suddenly. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said quietly, "that when you sent that message, you called to something ancient, something that cannot ignore a cry for protection." His eyes flashed red again for just a moment. "I am a shifter, a wolf, and you, whether you meant to or not, have asked for the protection of an alpha." Emma should have laughed, should have thought he was insane, but she'd seen his eyes glow, felt the predatory weight of his presence, heard the animal sounds beneath his words. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," JAREK said, and something in his tone promised both threat and shelter. "Because you're in my territory now, under my protection, and I do not let go of what is mine." Emma woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the distant sound of voices. Her arm throbbed dully beneath the fresh cast, but the pain medication had dulled the worst of it. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The wrong text, the glowing eyes, the impossible words. "I am a shifter." A soft knock preceded a young woman entering with a breakfast tray. She had dark hair and eyes that flickered with that same unnatural light. "The Alpha requests your presence in the main hall when you're ready," she said, her tone polite but cool. She set the tray down and left without another word. Emma dressed slowly in the clothes provided, simple but well-made, and followed the sounds of activity downstairs. The main hall was vast, with a vaulted ceiling and a massive stone fireplace. At least 20 people were gathered there, and every single one of them turned to look at her when she entered. The silence was suffocating. JAREK stood at the center, commanding the space without effort. Luca was beside him, along with 2 other men who radiated the same dangerous energy. But it was the women who made Emma's skin prickle, 3 of them standing together, watching her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. "Emma," JAREK's voice cut through the tension. "Come here." She walked forward on unsteady legs, hyper-aware of every eye tracking her movement. JAREK's hand settled on her shoulder when she reached him, warm and possessive. "This is Emma William," he announced to the room. She is under my direct protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. Is that understood? A chorus of murmured assent rippled through the crowd, but Emma caught the sidelong glances, the tightened jaws. These are my betas, JAREK continued, gesturing to the men beside him.
Luca you've met.
This is Mikhail and Darius. They answer only to me. The three men nodded to her with varying degrees of warmth. And these are our healers and senior pack members. One of the women stepped forward, tall, beautiful, with auburn hair and cold amber eyes. A human, JAREK? Really? Her tone was respectful, but laced with challenge. She's a liability. Fragile. She doesn't understand our ways. Careful, Irina. JAREK's voice went low, dangerous. You question my judgment? Irina's eyes dropped immediately.
No, Alpha.
Forgive me. But Emma had heard the unspoken words clearly enough. You're weak. You don't belong here. After the pack dispersed, JAREK led Emma to his office, a room of dark wood and leather, maps of vast territories covering one wall. He poured her water and waited until she met his eyes. There are rules here, he said quietly. Rules that will keep you alive. First, you do not leave the estate grounds without my permission or an escort. There are dangers in these woods you cannot comprehend. Emma nodded, her throat tight. Second, what you see and hear in this territory stays here. Our existence is secret, and we keep it that way through absolute discretion. I understand. Third, his eyes flashed red for a heartbeat. When I give you a command, you obey immediately. Not because I wish to control you, Emma, but because my authority is what keeps order. If the pack sees you defying me, they will see weakness. And weakness invites challenge. You mean they'll hurt me? They'll try, JAREK said, and his voice dropped to something almost like a growl. And they'll die for it. But I would rather you simply trust me.
Can you do that?
Emma looked at this impossible man with his glowing eyes and ancient scars, who destroyed her abuser and brought her to a world of monsters pretending to be human. She should be terrified. Should be planning escape. Instead, she whispered, yes. Good, JAREK said, and something in his expression softened. Then you're safe here, Emma. Absolutely safe. That is my promise to you. The days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Emma's arm healed slowly, the bruises fading from purple to yellow-green. Dr. Volkov checked on her regularly, his bedside manner gruff but kind. The pack kept their distance, watching her with wary eyes whenever she ventured through the halls, but no one challenged JAREK's protection. And JAREK came every evening. At first, Emma thought he was checking on her, ensuring his orders were being followed. But as the visits lengthened, she realized he wasn't interrogating her. He was simply there, sitting in the chair by her fire, asking about her day, bringing her books from his library when she mentioned being restless. You don't have to do this, she said one night, a week into her stay. I know you're busy. You don't need to babysit me. JAREK looked up from the reports he'd been reviewing, those amber eyes catching the firelight. I don't do anything I don't wish to do, Emma. Then why? She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Why do you come here every night? He was quiet for a long moment, and Emma thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set his papers aside and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Do you know what it means to be alpha? His voice was low, almost contemplative. It means every decision, every conflict, every challenge rests on my shoulders. I cannot show weakness, cannot hesitate. My pack survives because I am constant, unmovable, absolute. Emma nodded, not understanding where he was going. It's exhausting, JAREK admitted, and the raw honesty in those words startled her. To be that force every moment of every day. To know that one mistake, one moment of softness, could mean death for those under my protection. He met her eyes. When I'm here with you, I don't have to be that. You don't expect me to be a king. You just let me be present. Something cracked open in Emma's chest. She'd been so focused on her own fear, her own displacement, that she hadn't considered what it cost him to be what he was. I'm sorry, she whispered, about whatever made you need to be so strong all the time.
His jaw tightened.
Don't apologize for my choices. I'm not. I'm just. She struggled for words.
I'm grateful.
For what you did. For saving me. I couldn't do anything else, JAREK said, and his eyes flashed red for just a heartbeat. When I received your message, when I understood someone was hurting you, something in me. He stopped, shook his head. I've killed men for less. But with him, with your JAREK, I wanted to make it last. Make him understand what he'd done.
Why?
Emma asked. Why did it matter so much? I'm no one to you. You were hurting, JAREK said simply. You asked for help. And something in me answered before my mind could question it. He stood, moving to the window, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the night. My wolf recognized your call, Emma. Recognized something in you that demanded protection. Emma's heart hammered. What does that mean? I don't know yet, he admitted, turning back to her. But I intend to find out. The honesty between them felt like something fragile and impossibly strong all at once. Emma found herself asking, will you tell me about your world? About what it means to be what you are? JAREK smiled then, a real smile that transformed his harsh features into something almost beautiful. Yes, he said, settling back into his chair. I'll tell you everything.
And he did.
He spoke of shifting under full moons, of pack bonds and territorial instincts, of the history of his kind hidden in plain sight. Emma listened, fascinated and terrified and strangely comforted by the low rumble of his voice, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. For the first time since the text, since the terror and the broken arm and the impossible rescue, Emma felt something other than fear. She felt safe. 3 weeks into her stay, Emma found herself restless. Her arm was healing well, and the constant watching from pack members had shifted from hostile to merely curious. She'd learned the layout of the estate, memorized the faces and names of those who lived here. But she had no purpose, no role except the human under the Alpha's protection. She found JAREK in his office, poring over territory maps with Mikhail. Both men looked up when she knocked. I need something to do, Emma said before she could lose her nerve. I can't just sit in that room forever. Let me help with something. Mikhail's eyebrows rose, but JAREK studied her with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. What did you do before? Before JAREK. I was a teacher. Elementary school. The memory felt like another lifetime. I'm good with kids. Something shifted in JAREK's expression. We have younglings here. Pack children who need education in human subjects so they can navigate the outside world. He glanced at Mikhail. Irina's been managing it, but she's complained about the workload. Let me try, Emma said.
Please.
I need to be useful. JAREK stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You don't need to earn your place here, Emma. Maybe not, she admitted. But I need to feel like I belong. Like I'm more than just someone you rescued. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow, I'll introduce you to the younglings. The children were a revelation. 6 of them, ranging from 5 to 12, with bright eyes and restless energy. They were wary at first, watching Emma with the same caution their parents showed. But within an hour, she had them laughing over a math game, engaged in a story about brave explorers. Even Irina, who'd come to observe with skeptical arms crossed, looked grudgingly impressed. They like you, she said afterward, her tone less hostile than before. That's not common. We're taught early not to trust outsiders. I'm not trying to be an outsider, Emma said quietly. I'm trying to find my place here. Something in Irina's expression softened fractionally. Maybe you will. That evening, JAREK arrived earlier than usual, finding Emma reviewing lesson plans by the fire. He looked different tonight. Tense, almost uncertain, which was so unlike him it made Emma's pulse quicken. "What's wrong?" she asked. He sat across from her and for a long moment said nothing. Then, "There's something you need to understand. About why I came that night. Why I couldn't ignore your message." Emma set her papers aside, heart hammering. "In our world, there are bonds," JAREK continued, his voice low. "Fated connections between souls.
Mates.
When a wolf finds theirs, it's not a choice. It's recognition. An instinct older than thought itself." The air felt too thin. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that when I saw your message, when I read those words, something in me knew." His eyes met hers, burning with that red glow. "My wolf recognized you, Emma. Recognized what you are to me." "Which is what?" she whispered, though part of her already knew. "My mate," JAREK said simply. "The text wasn't wrong, Emma. It wasn't random.
Fate led you to me.
Your soul called to mine, and mine answered. It will always answer." Emma should have been terrified. Should have run. Instead, she thought about how safe she felt in his presence, how right it seemed when he walked into a room, how the bond between them had felt inevitable from the moment those red eyes found her in that bathroom. "I don't understand it," she said finally. "You don't have to. Not yet." JAREK leaned forward, his hand covering hers with careful gentleness. "But I needed you to know. You're not here by accident, Emma William. You're here because you're mine. And I'm yours." The truth settled into her bones like something that had always been waiting. The warning came on a cold morning 2 weeks later. Emma was in the teaching room with the younglings when Luca appeared in the doorway, his face grim.
"Emma.
"The Alpha needs you.
Now."
The urgency in his voice sent ice through her veins. She followed him to JAREK's office where the entire inner circle had gathered. Mikhail, Darius, Dr. Volkov, and several others she'd seen but never spoken to. The tension in the room was suffocating. JAREK stood at his desk, holding what looked like a dead rabbit. But as Emma drew closer, she saw the message tied around its neck with wire, a piece of paper stained with blood. "What is it?" she asked. "A challenge," Mikhail said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "From Victor Roshan, Alpha of the Eastern Territories." JAREK's eyes were pure crimson, his control visibly fraying. "Read it," he said, his voice more growl than words. Darius picked up the paper carefully. "Your human pet is a weakness, Kael. Proof that the great Northern Alpha has gone soft. Surrender your southern border, or I'll show you how fragile human bones really are. You have 3 days." Emma's blood turned to ice. "He's threatening me to get to you. He's signing his own death warrant," JAREK snarled, and the sound was so inhuman that several pack members stepped back instinctively. "JAREK, we need to think strategically," Dr. Volkov said calmly. "Roshan has been looking for an opening for years. He's testing you. Then I'll answer his test by ripping his throat out. Or..." Irina stepped forward, her expression serious. "You acknowledge her formally. Make it clear that Emma isn't a vulnerability, but a strength. Your mate. Your Luna." The room went silent. Emma's heart hammered so loud, she was sure everyone could hear it. "If we do that," Mikhail said slowly, "if we make it official, any attack on her is an attack on the Alpha directly. It changes the rules of engagement. It also means Emma becomes a permanent target," Darius countered. "Every rival, every challenger will know exactly how to hurt JAREK. They already know," Emma heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her. This Roshan already figured it out. Acknowledging it doesn't change the danger, it just makes the consequences clear. JAREK crossed to her in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face, with surprising gentleness despite the rage still burning in his eyes. If I claim you publicly, there's no going back. You'll be bound to this world, to me, forever. Every enemy I have becomes yours. Emma thought about the past month, about finding purpose with the younglings, about the safety she felt in Jarek's presence, about the impossible truth that her soul had called to his across a wrong number. She thought about running, about the life she'd left behind with Jarek's fists and fear. This was fear too, but it was different. This was choosing to stand beside something powerful instead of cowering beneath something cruel. I'm already bound to you, she said quietly. I have been since you walked through that door. So make it official. Let this Roshan know exactly what he's challenging. Something fierce and possessive flashed across Jarek's face. He turned to the assembled pack, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Send word to all territories. In 2 days, there will be a bonding ceremony. Emma William will be acknowledged as my mate and Luna of the Northern Pack. His eyes swept the room, daring anyone to object. And any who threaten her will learn why I am called king. The pack members bowed their heads in acknowledgement, but Emma saw the mixture of concern and respect in their expressions. She'd just agreed to paint a target on her back, but she'd also just claimed her place beside an alpha king. JAREK pulled her close, his lips against her ear. I will protect you with everything I am, Emma. I swear it. I know, she whispered back. That's why I'm staying. The attack came the night before the ceremony, when the estate was thick with preparations and visiting pack members from allied territories. JAREK had insisted Emma learn basic self-defense, spending an hour each evening teaching her how to use an attacker's strength against them, where to strike to disable, how to move when cornered. She'd thought it was precautionary. Now she understood it was prophecy. Emma was in the teaching room, organizing supplies for the younglings, when she heard the first scream. Then another. The sound of breaking glass, and something that was definitely a wolf's snarl echoed through the halls. Her instinct was to hide, to curl small and wait for rescue, like she'd done with JAREK. But the door to the teaching room burst open and 3 of the younglings stumbled in, wide-eyed with terror. The oldest, a girl named Sasha, was bleeding from a cut on her arm. Miss Emma, she sobbed. There are wolves. Bad wolves. They're hurting people. Emma's heart hammered, but her mind went cold and clear. Get behind the desk. All of you.
Now.
They obeyed instantly, cramming themselves into the space. Emma grabbed the fire poker from the hearth, the only weapon available, and positioned herself between the children and the door. Her cast-free arm trembled, but she forced it steady. She heard footsteps in the hall. Heavy, deliberate. A man appeared in the doorway, and Emma knew immediately he wasn't Pack. His eyes were wrong, cold amber with no warmth, no recognition. Blood stained his shirt. Well, he said with a smile that made her skin crawl. Roshan said Kael's little human would be easy pickings. Looks like he was right. You need to leave, Emma said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded.
Now.
He laughed and stepped into the room. Or what? You'll hit me with that stick? Emma thought of Jarek's words during training. They'll expect you to be weak. Use that. Wait for them to underestimate you, then strike fast and hard. She waited. The man crossed half the room, confidence making him sloppy. When he reached for her, Emma sidestepped exactly as JAREK had taught her, using his momentum against him. She swung the poker hard into his knee, the vulnerable joint, and felt the satisfying crunch of impact. He went down with a howl. Emma didn't hesitate. She brought the poker across his temple with everything she had. He crumpled. Behind the desk, the younglings stared at her with wide eyes. Stay there, Emma commanded, then moved to the doorway, poker raised. Luca appeared at the end of the hall, blood on his face, but very much alive. Emma, are you? He saw the unconscious man on her floor, and his expression shifted to something like shock. Did you? The children are safe, Emma said. Where's JAREK? Dealing with Roshan's forces in the main hall. We need to get you to the safe room. No, Emma said firmly. We need to get the younglings to safety. Then I'm going to help. Emma, JAREK will kill me if. JAREK will thank me for protecting his pack, she interrupted, channeling every ounce of authority she'd learned from watching the Alpha King command his territory. Now move. Later, when the attack was repelled and Roshan's infiltrators were either dead or fleeing, JAREK found Emma in the teaching room, still holding the poker. The younglings clustered around her. His eyes were wild, his clothing torn and blood-stained, but he was unhurt. Emma, he breathed, crossing to her in 2 strides. His hands ran over her, checking for injuries. When I heard they'd breached the swing, I handled it, she said simply. JAREK looked at the unconscious man, then at the children who were now telling him excitedly about how Miss Emma had protected them, how she'd been fierce and brave like a real wolf. When his eyes met Emma's again, they burned with something beyond pride, beyond relief. You saved them, he said hoarsely. My younglings. You stood your ground. I'm not running anymore, Emma told him. Not from danger. Not from this life. Not from you. JAREK pulled her close, and Emma heard him whisper words in that ancient language against her hair. She didn't need a translation to understand. She'd proven herself, not as a weakness, but as a strength worth claiming. The bonding ceremony was held under the full moon 3 nights later, after the estate had been secured and Roshan's survivors had carried word back to their alpha about what happened when you threatened the Northern King's mate. The entire pack gathered in the ancient clearing behind the estate, a space ringed by towering pines and lit by hundreds of candles and ceremonial torches. Emma wore a dress of deep silver that Irina had helped her choose, simple but elegant, with her hair loose down her back. As she walked through the assembled pack members toward where JAREK waited at the center, she saw faces that had once viewed her with suspicion, now watching with respect. The younglings beamed at her. Even the wary females nodded acknowledgement. JAREK stood beside the ceremonial stone, dressed in black with ancient pack symbols embroidered in silver thread across his chest. His long hair was pulled back, revealing the scars on his neck, the fierce beauty of his face. When his eyes found her, they glowed that deep amber red that no longer frightened her, but instead made her feel anchored, claimed home. Dr. Volkov officiated, speaking words in the old language that rolled through the clearing like distant thunder. Emma didn't understand all of it, but she caught the important parts. Mate, Luna, eternal bond, strength shared. Emma William, JAREK said, his voice carrying to every member of the pack. You came to me broken, asking for protection. I came to you as Alpha, as protector, as the fury that answers when innocence cries out. He took her hands in his touch warm and steady. But you have become so much more than the woman I saved. You have become my equal, my partner, the strength that balances my rage, the compassion that tempers my judgment. Emma's throat tightened with emotion. I texted the wrong number, she said, and several pack members chuckled softly. I was looking for my mother and found a king instead. I thought it was an accident, a mistake born of fear and pain. It was fate, JAREK said quietly. It was fate, Emma agreed. Because you showed me that strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing up even when you are. You taught me that I don't have to be small to be safe, that I can be powerful and protected at the same time. JAREK's eyes blazed. Do you accept this bond? Knowing the dangers, the enemies, the weight of standing beside an Alpha King. I accept, Emma said without hesitation. I choose you. I choose this pack. I choose this life. Then by the laws of our kind, by the old ways and the blood oaths, Dr. Volkov intoned. "I declare Emma William as Luna of the Northern Territories, mate to Alpha JAREK KAEL. May any who challenge this bond face the fury of the entire pack." The pack howled, a sound both human and wolf, triumphant and fierce, that echoed through the forest and announced to every territory that the Northern King had claimed his queen. JAREK pulled Emma close and kissed her, and the connection between them flared like lightning, the fated bond finally acknowledged, finally complete. When they broke apart, Emma saw the pack bowing, saw Luca and Mikhail grinning, saw Irina wiping her eyes. "Luna," JAREK whispered against her lips.
Meaning?
"Yours," Emma whispered back. "Always." She thought about that terrified woman huddled in a bathroom, typing a desperate message with shaking hands. She thought about the impossible reply that had changed everything. She thought about how the wrong number had led her to exactly where she was always meant to be, in the arms of an alpha king, standing as his equal, home at last.